Hi, I'm soft speaker Lynn, otherwise known as the fairy godmother to your children. I'm here actually with the second part of what I've been creating um, about this story that's like Cinderella, only it's from the Grimm's brothers, as retold by Carolyn Emerick, and you can find her books on Amazon. See the link below. And if you haven't already seen or listened to my stream about with the actual telling of the story, you might want to do that first. I'll provide the link to that in one of the comments pretty soon. Um, so this is the fifth installment in the European fairy tale series. And I've only done one other book, which was book number 1. But, I did also another one to Peer Gynt. And I also have The Star Money. And all of these books can be found on Amazon. So each book takes a look at some of the deeper cultural elements found within a different tale from the European tale canon. This volume explores some of the pagan elements which were preserved within the Brothers Grimm version of Cinderella, and focuses especially on animism and ancestor veneration. The text also explores the hybrid spirituality known as popular religion and the enchanted worldview of indigenous Europeans. So the first chapter, and I'm just going to do little short streams, and it's a little easier to digest. There's a lot of information in here, but it can be quite interesting. And if you'd like to understand the background of the stories that your children are viewing, this would be great for you to listen to. And as they get older, they can also listen to these chapters and understand better. It's really educational more than entertainment, but I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what you think below. So the first chapter here, the Indigenous European Spiritual World View. And of course, I've got other chapters here. Animism in the Northern European Belief System. That'll be my next stream. Let's see. Recalibrating our worldview to understand the past. This is important. Animistic ancestor veneration. If you just want to understand a little bit more about your past, if you happen to be of Northern European blood, DNA, this will be more interesting to you. Although it'd be good for everyone to know this about us. And then another chapter, the female ancestral spirit guardians. I think that's the end. Yeah. And then, of course, we have the reading of the actual story that I just got done doing today. The indigenous spiritual worldview of Europeans was not very different than the kind of earthy spirituality that has been historically found among other ethnic groups around the world. Indeed, many Westerners have been fascinated by the indigenous beliefs of such people as Native Americans, Amazonians, Polynesians, and Australian Aboriginals, just to name a few. At the same time, there has been a trend for Westerners who have been dissatisfied with the options afforded over the years to look eastward for a more holistic approach to philosophical spirituality. And indeed, the cosmological beliefs of many global indigenous peoples, as well as the philosophical outlooks found in the East, have much to offer a soul seeker of any background. However, what is lamentable is not the desire to learn from others, but the lack of understanding that Europeans, too, once shared a beautiful spiritual tradition. Before one can earnestly learn from another culture, they must be grounded in an understanding of their own native culture. For one who knows nothing of their own culture does not have a grounded construct by which to access and assimilate understandings learned from foreign cultures. In other words, a person without a cultural grounding has no context by which to explore a foreign culture juxtapositionally. Like some Eastern traditions still found today in parts of Asia, Europeans venerated their ancestors. They believed that the spirit lived on and could interact with mortals. Europeans certainly believed in nature spirits, such as dryads in the Greek tradition, who were nymph spirits who inhabited trees. Northern European peoples likewise believed that their landscapes were rife with wits, land spirits who dwelled within the seas, streams, forests, mountains, rocks, fields, plants, and so forth. And from something else I read somewhere, I've gathered that there's a wit or a fairy assigned to each part, like the ocean, the forest, the desert, whatever, like desert fairy. There's stories about that, the yellow fairy. Christianization in Northern Europe typically occurred from the top down, meaning it was often adopted for political reasons by the ruling classes, if not forced upon leaders by conquest, such as Charlemagne's military and subsequent conversion campaigns against the Saxons. Because history was written by scribes, sponsored by their ruling elite or the church, the religion of the common people has been described by historians as strictly Christian from the point of conversion onward. Most scholars who study folk belief today understand that the situation is much more complex than this. Here's an illustration by Edmund Dulac. Stay with me now. It's going to be short. While Christianity and paganism certainly engaged in a tug of war at the outset, eventually the peasants would have settled into a self-identity that viewed themselves as Christian. However, that did not stop the peasantry from engaging in pagan beliefs and practices. When a social religious shift is thrust upon a population, a phenomenon occurs called popular religion. Today, the most well-known example of hybrid popular religion is a rich mixture of indigenous belief with Catholicism that is seen in Mexico. The same scenario can be seen where Buddhism displaced local animistic beliefs in parts of East Asia. It certainly occurred in places where Islam was forced onto a foreign population. So it should surprise no one that Europeans also practiced a hybridized belief system, even into the modern era, even when they themselves were not conscious that they were doing so. Pardon me, I'm going to have to drink. Evidence for hybrid belief has been found in many ways. Archaeologists have found ritual sites where superstitious or magical rites have been practiced. Recent work into the witch trial records has shown quite incontrovertibly that at least some of the people accused of witchcraft were actually engaging in shamanic ritual practice. This has been discovered in European locales as widespread as Scotland, Northern Europe, Italy, and Hungary. Oh my. Mm. And one other source of evidence for the continuation of pagan belief is the folk tradition. The folk tradition consists not only of folk tales, but also of superstitious beliefs and practices recorded by ethno- ethnologists and folklorists, and folk customs related to the archaeological year that's still a practice throughout Europe today. Agricultural year, pardon me. I'm starting to feel better. I just get really thirsty. And folk customs related to the agricultural year that are still practiced throughout Europe today. One hidden corner of the folk tradition that has been overlooked as a vessel by which Indigenous beliefs continued to be passed down is the fairy tale canon. Of course, fairy tales were not considered true stories. And of course, people will have been aware that they contained magical elements of fantasy. However, they did preserve certain aspects of Indigenous belief and continued to pass those beliefs down through oral storytelling. Those hearing the tales did not have to believe the stories were literally true in order to benefit from the lessons wrought therein. In addition, it is sometimes the case where certain supernatural occurrences within folk and fairy tales can be verified as something actually believed in by the people when it can be corroborated with some other evidence. Ethnologists and folklorists record local superstitions that survived in Europe into the 18th and 19th and even early 20th centuries. And sometimes these superstitions turn up in folk and fairy tales. For instance, an English folk tale about a man who climbs Pendle Hill in order to confront witchcraft and thereby end a string of bad luck depicts the belief in the ash tree as a protective amulet. Another example is the tale of Thomas the Rhymer, which we explored in this series. In the tale, Thomas is taken out of the mortal world and into Elfhame with the fairy queen. Without a background of studying Scottish witch trial scholarship, a casual reader would not be aware that into the 16th and 17th centuries, there are records of accused witches testifying to having been taken out of Middle Earth into Elfhame. So while I would not assert that the general public believed that fairy tales were true stories, I would assert that they do reflect a common cosmological worldview, which saw the landscape as enchanted. Although the average person viewed themselves as strictly Christian, their belief system incorporated many beliefs that were non-Christian. And in fact, those non-Christian beliefs came straight from their own native spiritual past. Now, the next chapter, Animism in the Northern European Belief System, will explain exactly what is meant by animism as far as plants and animals and stones not having their own soul. So stay tuned for that, and I'm going to get a bitter drink of water. So grab a drink of water or your coffee or something, and I'll join you soon. I'm going to brush up on the next chapter and get back to you. Thank you for bearing with me, and I hope that if I don't see you later, or if I don't see any comments, anyway, just have a good Valentine's Day. Thank you.